The video begins with Miles sitting in his room listening to music and drawing graffiti. His mother called him, but he did not hear her. His father reminded him that he would soon take him to school, and Miles began to get ready for school. He managed to eat quickly and went to school. He was going to a new school, and on the way he met his old classmates. Miles went on and accidentally stepped on a shoelace and fell on the road along which his father was driving in a police car. He got in the car and they went to school. They drove past the screen on which the exploits of Spider-Man were shown, but Miles' father did not like this superhero because after his exploits, Michael's father had to answer for everything he did. Miles came to a new school. It was an elite school. Very smart people studied there, and Miles was an ordinary student compared to them. He said goodbye to his father, went to school. He tried to meet someone, but no one knew him. He was very tired in class because there was a very heavy load. The last lesson came. It was a lesson in which they watched instructive videos, and this lesson Miles met a classmate. The next day, the teacher showed Miles the results of his test work. This girl scored 0 points out of 100 and the teacher gave him homework. Write an essay about yourself and what kind of person you want to become. But Miles postponed this matter and ran to his uncle named Aaron. He had real fun with his uncle. He told me that he met a girl at school, but did not know her name. My uncle took Miles to the subway to show one place. They went into an abandoned room and my uncle specially found this room for Miles to paint graffiti on it. Since he was good at doing it, he began to draw, when suddenly some strange descended from the ceiling. The spider climbed on Miles. Miles finished his drawing. They looked at the drawing and were about to leave when suddenly this spider bit Miles. Miles dropped the spider and went on. The night passed and Miles woke up. He put on his pants and noticed that they were too small for him. He came to school and he started sweating a lot. A girl he met came out to meet him. He decided to roll up to her and put his hand on her shoulder, but when he was about to remove it, he noticed that the hand stuck to her hair. The girl thought that he was mocking her, and the whole school looked at how they tried to get free. This girl had to cut the side to which Miles's hand stuck, and now it didn't look pretty. Miles was walking around the school and everyone was laughing at him. He met a guard in the corridor and the guard tried to stop him since Miles had recently run away from school. He accidentally ran into the office of this guard and closed the door. He tried to escape through the window, but his hand stuck to the door. He started accidentally destroying everything around and accidentally climbed on the ceiling and then fell from the window. But he was able to stick to the wall with his feet. The girl he met saw Miles walking on the wall and couldn't believe it. Miles reached his room and couldn't understand why he was sticking to everything. He opened the Spider-Man comic and saw how the spider had the same problems as him. He was running to his uncle to tell about the fact that he is now Spider-Man, when suddenly he was almost hit by a car, but he was able to jump very high and dodge the collision. Miles got off the subway and came to the place where he was bitten by a spider. He wanted to find it. He was able to find a spider when suddenly his spider sense worked and he went into some room. When suddenly something broke through the wall and crashed into Miles. Miles looked out to sea and saw Spider-Man fought with Norman Osborn. Miles accidentally caught on a crane and was lifted right over their battle. He went down and ran. He was running when suddenly he almost failed. It was some kind of strange room with some technology. Suddenly Norman fell into this room and knocked Miles down, and now Miles was falling from a big heights. Spider-Man saw Miles and saved him. They landed and suddenly they both had the spider's sense at the same time. Spider-Man realized that Miles was also Spider-Man. Suddenly some sinister machine started and Spider-Man ran to turn it off. He had a flash drive and he had to insert it into the matrix of this machine. He almost inserted it when suddenly some villain attacked him. A battle began between them and Miles tried to film it. This was all watched by a villain named Kingpin. He created this portal that was already being prepared for launch. The portal was launched and two powerful beams crashed into each other, and thus a portal was formed. Scientists who worked for Kingpin found 5 different dimensions, and suddenly something strange began to happen in their world. A goblin grabbed a spider and half dragged him into this portal. The spider saw a lot of dimensions and saw the same spiders as him, only in other dimensions. But suddenly the portal exploded and the electricity was overloaded throughout the city. Miles found Spider-Man. He was lying down and he felt very bad. Spider-Man handed Miles the flash drive that could stop this colliser. Spider told him to go somewhere, inserted the flash drive, pressed the button and blew everything up. He also told Miles not to tell anyone who he was, since no one could be trusted. Miles didn't understand what was going on and didn't understand what Spider-Man was talking about. Miles hid and overheard Kingpin. He ordered his scientists to re-prepare the device for launch. Since this launch was a test, Kingpin approached the spider and took off his mask. He wanted to kill him, but the spider said she could tell what he saw in other dimensions when the goblin held him in a teleport. But Kingpin killed Spider-Man, and suddenly Miles made a sound and Kingpin heard it and ordered his assistant named Tramp to kill Miles, and he chased after him. Miles jumped over the fence and ran. A tramp was chasing him. Suddenly a train came out to meet him and Miles managed to jump onto the platform at the last moment. Another train was approaching and Miles had to have time to jump over it, and he did it. He was able to jump and the tramp did not. Miles ran outside and hid when suddenly a tramp drove past him, but he did not notice him. Miles ran to the house and climbed into his room through the window. He hugged his parents because he was very scared. He stayed the night with his parents. The flash drive was still with him, and his parents were watching TV, which said that Spider-Man had died. This news spread all over the world, and when people found out they could believe it. Miles came to the store and bought a Spider-Man mask. He went to the toilet and put it on. He came to the city center, where a Spider-Girl named Mary Jane was saying a farewell speech. The performance ended and Miles stopped somewhere in an alley. He took with him comics in which Spider-Man told his story about how he became a spider. Miles saw in the comic that if you want to know if you are a Spider-Man, then you need to jump from building to building. He climbed to the roof, ran up and stepped on his shoelace and flew down. The wires softened the fall and Miles fell right on the place where the same flash drive was lying. He took out the flash drive and saw that it was broken. He got upset and came to the cemetery where the man was buried. Spider. He started talking to the grave when suddenly someone came up from behind. Miles was scared and released an electric web into him, although he did not know that he could do that. Miles walked over and saw that it was the same Spider-Man who had given him the flash drive. Now we are shown the backstory of how this Spider-Man appeared near Miles even though he was dead. Once Spider-Man was the best superhero. He got married and after a while he quarreled with her, lost a lot of money because he invested money in his cafe. 15 years passed. Peter buried his aunt, divorced his wife, and he became depressed and gained a lot of excess weight. One day he came home with pizza. He lay down on the bed when suddenly some kind of portal formed in the ceiling in which he was sucked in. Peter flew through many dimensions and teleported to the planet where Miles was, and so he also came to the cemetery, but he was electrocuted by Miles. Miles took Peter and they hitched to the train with the help of a web, tried to escape from the police. The train stopped and Miles and Peter fell. Miles dragged Peter into his uncle's house and tied him up because he didn't understand why this man looked like Spider-Man. Peter said that he was another Spider-Man from another dimension. Peter freed himself and tried to leave when suddenly something strange started happening to him. It turned out that Adams the Peters could not get used to this dimension. Miles said that somewhere in the subway there is a base of villains on which there is a collider with which Peter can return to his dimension. Miles said that he broke the flash drive and asked if it was possible to create another one, but Peter said that it would be very difficult. They went to a cafe and Miles said that they could make this flash drive again at COMMIXES, and they took the bus to this place. Dear subscribers, this is not the end of the story. You can see the continuation on the channel. Put likes and subscribe to the channel. I love you.